So welcome to my video about something called Sampra, which is the, according to Ayurveda, it's the disease process. So I'm really excited to share this video because it's such important knowledge that once it starts getting out there, it's going to be huge and people will start realising the potential of this medical system. So a disease occurs basically as a process according to Ayurveda, and it's in 6 stages. So I will try to explain it in a really nutshell way, just so it makes it easier to understand. So if you're new to Ayurveda, I'm going to use the word dosha, which might confuse you, but I will try to explain it in a way that you can understand. So basically, all the elements exist within us, okay? And there's particular places along the gastrointestinal tract where they predominantly sit, you can say. So the stomach is the seat for kapha dosha, which is elements of earth and water. The pitta dosha sits mainly in the intestines, in the mid part of the body, and this is the elements of fire and water. And the elements of air and ether are the vata dosha, and they sit mainly in the colon, so in the lower part of the body. Now, ordinarily, these doshas are sitting in these places, doing their function, okay? And within the GI tract exists our Agni, which is our digestion fire. It's actually a fire in all different parts of the body, but in the GI tract, it's mainly to digest food. So the Agni keeps these doshas in place, so they don't sort of go wild and start spreading. So if the Agni is strong, the doshas will stay in this GI tract, okay, because that's where they're supposed to be. It's their home, basically. Now, the disease process is basically how these doshas accumulate and get out of the GI tract. So the first stage of the disease process, according to Ayurveda, is called sanchaya, which is an accumulation. So the dosha, or the elements, in particular areas of the GI tract will start accumulating, and there are signs and symptoms of this accumulation. If you are aware of your body to recognise it, you can treat it yourself, and it's a very, very quick way to eliminate the dosha or the excess dosha from the body and prevent it from getting worse. If, however, it's left untreated, it basically is able to start accumulating more, and then it is easily provoked. Because if you follow a lifestyle and a diet that provokes that particular element, then it will start to show even more symptoms in the body. The next stage is when it starts to spread. So if you can imagine, it's filling, the dosha is filling that particular area, and then it starts to spread in the body. Okay, so this stage is called prasara, and as it begins to spread in the body, it starts to look for a place to deposit, and they will normally find like a weak spot in the body, somewhere where there was trauma, a genetic disposition, a place of like a lot of emotional baggage might be hiding in these places, and it finds a weak spot and then it deposits in this area. So this is called sthana samshraya, where it basically localizes itself to a site of weakness once it's spreading in the body. Then the next stage is vyakti, where it starts to manifest the symptoms of disease. So I've already gone through 5 stages, and then at the 5th stage, manifestation of the disease starts to occur. And it's normally at the 5th stage that we're like, uh-oh, I'm going to go to the doctor. But according to Ayurveda, there's 4 other stages before that where you can recognise and take preventative action to stop it getting to that stage. Okay, the 6th stage is Beda, where it's gone very, very far in the disease process, and it's basically destruction of tissue, deformation of tissue, and complications. So now the excess dosha has been sitting in the circulation and it's lodged itself in a place, and it's creating a real problem for you. And this is where chronic diseases are born, basically, because these doshas gets left in these places and it's continually forming this problem for you. Now, at this stage, the disease is much, much difficult to treat. Even with Ayurveda, it's more difficult to treat a disease in this stage than the earlier stages. However, this is what's so powerful about Ayurveda, is that it can catch your disease early on. Like, it gives you the power to recognize when your body is going out of balance, so that you can treat yourself, or you can, if you follow Ayurveda and you want to see an Ayurvedic physician, obviously you can, and then they can also treat you too and advise you what herbs you can take, what diet to follow, and what lifestyle to follow to basically counteract that imbalance that's occurring. And if we can keep the doshas basically in the GI tract, you've eliminated the chances of it spreading within the body. So let me do an example for you so you can understand more. So for example, say you went on holiday to a hot environment and you had a lot of spicy foods and red wine, for example. All of these things are quite heat aggravating. Okay, you came back and it was your friend's wedding or someone's wedding, and there's again a lot of spicy food. Maybe it was an Asian wedding where there's it's always lots of spicy foods there. So perhaps you had a lot of spicy food on top of that. And then what you've done is basically provoked the already accumulated heat in the abdomen. So then after you've provoked it with that, it begins to spread. And then what's the spreading symptom? The acid reflux, because you start to feel the heat as it rises up. Okay, so because of the heat it generally rises up, but it is possible that it moves different directions. But in this case, we'll imagine that it starts to rise up. So you start to feel heat in this particular area, and then you start getting symptoms of acid reflux occurring in the body. So at this stage, you might, take some sort of antacid because you think, there's too much acid in my gut. So you take something to reduce that down, but you don't stop to think about what it is you're putting into your body that's causing the heat in the first place. So in a way, it gets left, okay? And then the next stage, if it's not basically kept within the realms of the GI tract, if your Agni is not strong enough to keep the dosha in there, it will start to spread in the body, start to go into the circulation. And this is where Vata dosha is also involved, because Vata governs movement. So it's basically spreading in the body, and in this spread you will notice the symptoms of it. So for example, there are many symptoms of this, but you might feel a lot of heat in the body, you might get skin rashes, some things like urticaria, like itching, eczema, dermatitis sort of issues, rashes will occur because the heat is spreading in the body. Okay? And then the next stage, for example, if it's still not treated and you're still following a lifestyle and diet that's aggravating it even more, it's going to basically circulate and it's going to find a weak tissue to lodge itself, to stay there. Because it's like the doshas are quite naughty, like once they've got out the GI tract, they're like, woo, and they start running around the body and they can't wait to find somewhere. And they'll sit there basically so that they hide. They hide because they don't want to have to go back home. They're a bit like naughty children, I suppose. That's what my teacher explained. So basically the dosha, like the pitta, is going to be circulating in your body. It's going to lodge in a place. Let's say, for example, when I was younger, you fell off the swings in the park and you hit your elbow, and it's always been a dodgy elbow for you. So we could call this like a weak site in the body. And what the pitta circulating in the body does, like that heat, it's going to lodge in this weak space. It's going to say, there's a weak spot there, run, like hide, basically. And it starts to lodge itself into the tissue of this weak space. Then you'll start getting the symptoms. And you'll start to notice a lot of heat in the elbow, the joints will start to hurt, maybe like swelling might occur. It might not be all the time, but you notice it every now and again and you think, well, what is that? I'll just leave it. Maybe you don't treat it either. And then this is Vyakti, where the manifestation occurs when you start to get those clear-cut symptoms. And And this is normally where you would go to the doctor, and they would probably run blood tests, check for arthritis. They'd notice that you've probably got a lot of heat in the body, acid. So all these markers start to show that there's a general heat imbalance. And then if that's not treated and the heat's not taken out or dislodged, it will then lead to complications and the tissue starts to get damaged, and then you'll get chronic rheumatism, or for example chronic arthritis. So this is a really very brief example of this process. I think this is hugely powerful. Like, along that whole process, if you at the beginning thought to yourself, oh, you know what, I've had a lot of spicy things and I'm having a bit of reflux, Ayurveda has ways to empower you to be able to follow a diet and take particular remedies at home. You don't have to follow get the herbs. There's so many home remedies you can take to basically counteract that imbalance, so you can rebalance yourself at that early stage, so you don't have to end up waiting for the symptoms to start occurring in the later stage. Now, health prevention is huge at the moment. Like, everyone's into all this prevention of all these chronic diseases. There's so much research going into all these really chronic problems that, according to Ayurveda, could be easily rectified at the beginning. Now, if you're looking for a preventative health system, here is one right now. And what's annoying, I think, is that for some reason Ayurveda still feels like it has to be proved in this day and age. Like, you cannot prove Ayurveda with the current parameters that we measure science with, because Ayurveda is a whole entirely different system of healing. It doesn't measure things in terms of blood pressure and blood cell count and all these things. Like, it does it on an entirely different basis. It's like trying to measure a rectangle with a protractor. You see, like, someone clever is going to tell me that you can do that probably, but basically you're trying to measure something that can't be done because it's not the right tool. So if you've taken on something with this knowledge and you think it's powerful, follow Ayurveda, start getting into it, start reading, start contacting practitioners, start educating yourself, because unfortunately I feel like Ayurveda is at this battle where it's going to try and prove itself, but it doesn't need to be proved. Like, it's amazing as it is, and if people just start, there's no harm in trying it. So as a pharmacist, I get so many people coming into me and they have the symptoms of these diseases at an early stage. And I have to give them medication, knowing that if they treat it properly, and I do end up giving dietary advice to try and, encourage them to balance it out, but they don't realise it's Ayurveda, but I give advice to try and promote that. So you can basically prevent it. Like, this is health prevention at its core. So it's about time that this got recognised, that we can start treating diseases at an early stage rather than waiting for the complications of it at a later stage. So a really good example of this is cancer. So, cancer is a big topic now, and there's so much research going into the prevention of cancer, and it's obviously all valid. We should do as much research as possible. But there's a key area of a medical system that's really ancient that has this this golden opportunity for us to start looking at to prevent these horrible destructive diseases. So it breaks my heart when it doesn't sort of get acknowledged and looked into. So this is why I feel passionate to share it, because it really has the potential to change people's lives if it gets applied and practiced. So yes, I can go on and on about this, but thank you for watching. And if you have, if you relate to any of it, just get in touch and we can chat more.